need you to think of a time when you watched a movie or read a book that changed you somehow. It doesn't have to be the most important, inspiring, or well made piece of media. It just needs to be one that really spoke to you at the time. What happened to your world after it? Did you start doing things differently? Feeling things differently? Seeing yourself differently? When we start asking these things, we realize that fiction leaves a very visible mark. But even so, I still hear people say, oh, it's not that deep, when someone cries to the new Superman teaser, or genuinely ask a person if they're really crying because of a book. Why do we constantly forget that fiction can influence our attitude towards real people, real situations, and sometimes real events? We take those moments for granted by not wondering why they mean so much. We know that things like news footage and documentaries are important, not just because they can be a sign for schoolworks, but because they let us visualize. They can humanize something. They make things feel real and concrete. You didn't just see a number of people walk in EDSA, you saw them fill up the whole street. You saw their faces as they marched. And maybe you don't know their names, but you know that they have won. Although there's a problem. We don't properly recognize the way fiction does similar things, and we end up almost disregarding the impact of fiction in shaping us and our world. We tend to forget that. We should. Our art has evolved with us, adapting and changing throughout the times to reflect our changes too. They say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. More than just windows, they are also keys that let us see and unlock the souls of the things around us. Fiction matters. Whether it's about fiction as reflections of our realities, fiction as reflections of us, or fiction as our tool to reflect our realities. When fiction is seen by us, we often see beyond its manifestations in literature's pages or a film's frames. We are also seen. Fiction reflects our realities and in the process can create very real and tangible impacts. Jose Pro Tasherizal Mercado y Loteria Londa, Jose Rizal, is one of the most famous examples in literal Philippine history for letting the people recognize and realize that their suffering was unjust. But I know that some of you have borne witness to the glories of a Marxist evaluation of Shrek. You know, being curious about the background and being critical of the messages in the media that you watch, read, or listen to, that matters. Trying to find out more about them might lead to you knowing more about history and life too. Maybe even seeing how they brought change to it. They act like gateways, not finish lines. There is history, and by extension, our realities in your fictional media, including films like Shrek. Shrek. Have you seen that movie franchise? It's an ogre, a princess, and a talking donkey. That's not the entirety of it because it's hard to properly tell you the essence of Shrek. But then someone, somehow, used it to deconstruct a Marxist message for a midterm exam for a bunch of confused students of all possible places. It's an experience you have to have yourself. It's fascinating how there's so much hidden in our fiction. Even the silliest possible media you can think of. reflects something about our reality. You can ask yourself a few things next time. How was it created? When was it created? Who made it? What was in mind when it was being made? Okay, here's another one. I can bet that you didn't realize that the original meaning of the word decadence, something often used in chocolate or cake commercials to make them feel fancy and rich, parang social, diba? Actually, that has a dictionary meaning of moral or cultural decline, characterized by excessive indulgence in pleasure or luxury. TLDR, that's not really a good thing. You know, I also didn't know that. Not until I got interested in a book and then its author, and we snowballed from there. Did you know that Oscar Wilde was one of the pioneers in Britain for the movement that redefined how we use the word decadence today? Oscar Wilde's most famous and enduring writing is The Picture of Dorian Gray, a novel about a man who made a deal where he would put his literal absolute soul into a painting that would age instead of his body. Eternally beautiful, while the canvas rots into a horrible, unsightly thing. Wilde was persecuted for his writings, which were a fictional critique of Victorian society's very real vanity and hypocritical expectations, believing this to be the real decline of society. He was also gay, and his novel was underlined with his recognition of homosexuality. That's a big offense to a bigoted and discriminating crowd. Yet he decided to risk letting it be a part of his only novel anyway. Fiction can be our prompt towards a greater awareness of the world through what it reflects, either from directly consuming it or even just learning about it. Okay, then, how about fiction as reflections of us? There's this false idea that reading fiction is just a boring task that leads to nothing, and if not that, then it's seen as just for fun and isn't meaningful in any way. But that's wrong. Even science would back this up. Do you want a better vocabulary? To strengthen your brain? Or maybe you want more EQ? Well, reading's got you. Focusing just a little bit on the last part. Reading, or, well, the act of consuming fictional media in general, is important. Sylvia Knobloch Westerwick, lead author of a study from Ohio State University, explained the phenomena best. Tragic stories often focus on themes of eternal love, and this leads viewers to think about their loved ones and count their blessings. Fiction helps you to explore your own identity by reflecting your flaws, mistakes, and somehow your aspirations and dreams too. It lets you grow from their stories. It helps you see what they do, which helps you relate. Fiction can go beyond a statistic or a fact by humanizing things to us. You see perspectives shown to you in a new way from a place you'd have otherwise rarely had the chance to see up close, often projected from their own eyes and viewpoint. It feels almost personal. People find reflections of themselves in fiction. As James Baldwin, an American writer and civil rights activist, would tell you, you read something which you thought only happened to you, and you discovered it happened 100 years ago to Dostoevsky. You see them and feel seen in return. The first 15 minutes of Pixar's 2009 film, Oh, is one of the most gut wrenching sequences I had ever watched as a kid. To watch a grumpy old man and be annoyed just for me and the rest of the audience, which is you, to realize he was just human too. He had a wife, no kids. Then one day he was in a world that was changing so fast and felt so unfamiliar, and he was all alone. He was a kid once, and then he was an adult who didn't know how to handle grief. The concept of grief is something people don't fully understand until they feel it themselves, until their voice shakes when they thought it wouldn't, until you forget they won't be back by Wednesday for Christmas, or you cannot take things for granted because you never know whether you should have called or sent a message. You never know which goodbye was the last, will be the last, if you got the chance to say it at all. Up gives you the chance to see and feel at least a fraction of it by letting you know what was lost. The movie uses its fictional narrative to bring empathy and understanding towards others, and also to ourselves. Fiction will tell you to be kinder because there is so much humanity must deal with. Fortunately or unfortunately, the social being called humanity is very, very relatable in our joy and in our grief. We take inside of us a lesson or a reminder. One way or another, fiction reflects you and everything that that word means. Your circumstances, your feelings, your experiences, or your thoughts as a human. This talk is for those who love fiction, those who will hopefully be persuaded to try and find the beauty in it, and those who create it. Every book lover and, well, cinephile, if you like the fancy word for it, has something that made them fall in love with their respective mediums. The same applies to artists. Artists bring life to the fiction. They bring it to life, through the stories found inside their craft, both in books and movies. And a really good way to do that is in how they can bring their life into fiction. Lived experiences, both yours or other people's, are a great reference for you to use. For one, you can observe how others talk and note their mannerisms to make dialogue less awkward. Or remember your personal experience with certain events and emotions to describe them. Especially for themes that require a lot of attentiveness, we can reflect life and its realities into our chosen mirrors. World building becomes stronger when you can connect with your audience and make it make sense. Your story can be as fantastical as you want, so long as you ground it with believable worlds and characters. We don't have laser eyed cow heroes with wings in our world. What you can do is make one where it does, because this cow shares perhaps the same values as a person you look up to in a society not quite like ours, but almost. That's more of a technical writing tip than an absolute rule, though. Fiction can be a really effective tool in sparking very real change, reflection, realization, and discussion. Finding a way to bring our realities to the people through art is an art in itself. They're powerful because we can make people feel so much and care even more. It provides another avenue for the average person to understand these things. Fiction is the lie through which we see the truth. In the end, fiction is all around us. It's present in our history and the greater world we live in. It lets you dive within and reflect on yourself and your personal relationships. It's a tool for an artist to make their world, both fictional or not, better. Fiction is part of who we are as humans and sometimes just as a person. We can't really undo what's already done or how our stories begun, but maybe, just maybe, fiction can still help us reach better endings for ourselves and others. That's why fiction really, really matters. Thank you.